Okay, so tonight's lesson is El Olam, the everlasting God or the eternal God. And as some similar to last week, I went on a deep dive going through all my translations looking for the one that had it, and none of them did. And so I was like, none of them have them. Let me Google this. So I'm like, where in the Bible does it say El Olam? And it was like nowhere. And I'm like, well, then what is going on? And so I did a little bit more. And this is a reason why my study got off, is because I ended up going down rabbit holes. Um, and so it said this is the Hebrew translation of the word. So everlasting God or eternal God, forever God, all those different words that are used in that same context of God in translation in Hebrew, it means Elolam or Elolam. And so because of that, that is why that is used here in this space, is because that is the Hebrew translation of the word. So if you look in any English Bible, you're not going to find it. Last week we were able to find it in one version, which was the New Living Translation, but this time we will not be able to find it in the English version of the Bible because it's not there. It is just what the translation means for the Hebrew word. And so that was one interesting point. I don't know if anybody else was able to see that. And the first time that the eternal or everlasting God is used is in Genesis 21, verse 33. And it appears at a covenant moment in Abraham's life. So this is after he's had years of waiting for the answered prayer, which was Isaac. Um, the promise has finally come. He's secured land. He's established peace. We see him use this. And Abraham just doesn't call God a provider. He or a promise keeper. He calls him everlasting. To me, that was important because we had talked about last week how he had been waiting all these years from when God gave him the promise. Another thing, gave when he told him that this is what was going to happen to when the promise actually happened. And what I was reading is I can't what verse was it in? Oh, chapter 21 verse 2. It said it happened at just the time when God said it would happen. So we talked about last week how when God was talking to Abraham, he told him, this time next year, your wife will have had your promise, like your child, your son that I've been telling you. And in verse 21, it confirms it that it happened exactly when God said it was going to happen. It didn't happen when Abraham wanted to happen. It didn't happen when Sarah wanted to happen. It didn't happen when they thought it was going to happen. It didn't happen when people said it was going to happen. It happened exactly when God said it was going to happen. And we talked about last week how this is such a dynamic relationship between Abraham and God, because we know that God gives us promises, but most of the time, he does not give us a time of when that promise is going to come. And he had been promising Abraham and Sarah this for so long, and that when we talked last week, and I can't remember what chapter it was in, but he actually told him, he said, this time next year. So he told him when it was going to happen. And God fulfilled that time and promised. And he says like, just like I said it was going to happen, it happened. It happened when I said it was. And so we have to remember that God is faithful in all seasons, and for all generations. And I think to me, when I was reading the everlasting God, the eternal God. That is what I kept remembering, is that we have to remember that God is not just God when things are going great, or God is not just God when things are not happening the way we want them to happen, or God is just not God when we're expecting promises. God is God all the time. He is everlasting and eternal, and he is the one thing that will be forever. And it we had our installation service at church the second Sunday, I think. I can't remember if it was the second, whatever Sunday it was in January. And the pastor who was doing the installation, what he said, it resonated and it came back to my memory when I was reading this, is he said, one thing we have to stop doing as Christians is saying that we have more time behind us than we have ahead of us. He said, because if you truly believe in God, you have more time ahead of you than you have behind you because you believe in eternity. You believe in forever. You believe that once you pass away from this life that you will go on to be in eternity with God. And that's way longer than whatever 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years that you live here on
Second
this earth.
down here. And you know, I was there. I
Uh-huh.
heard it too. And I was like, you know what? I was one of those victims that said it. And I say it now. But one of the things that someone else, because I had said it again to somebody, um, the sister said, yeah, but on this earth, that makes the statement valid. But if you're talking about eternal, and I said, okay, I can take it both ways, but I like both ways.
Yes, yes, I did. But it came back to my memory when I was reading this because he is eternal and everlasting.
Mm.
And because he is that, and we're created in our his image, he gave us that same opportunity to have eternity. He gave us that same opportunity to be everlasting. Now we are not God, but it's a privilege and it's an honor to know that that is extended to us. And that regardless of what our circumstances or our situation is that he still remains that. And like in the Hebrew, this word is translated so many different ways. And it means so many different things in the English language. And I found the beauty in it that it's just one word for them. It's just one name for them. So we say everlasting, eternal, forever. We have all these different adjectives that we can use, and all they say is Elohim. That's it. And that means all of that. And so I think that when we use it in our prayer life, when we use it in our conversations, when we use it in our time with God, that we know that when we say that name, that we're encompassing all of those things in the English language and in the English version that it means, because in the Hebrew, it means so much more than just one word. And so, let me see if I can go back to my phone and my if I say if I got out of my Google search um to see what some of the other versions or things it means in Hebrew. Hold on. Let's see.
I also think, sis, that just him saying everlasting, he brought him into a place once his son was born that said, you know what,
Mhm.
even at this time in my life, because I had already given up.
Yeah. And okay, so I looked at it. So it's it can mean everlasting, it can mean eternal, it can mean forever, it can mean ancient, or it can mean perpetual. And that is what Olam means in Hebrew. So anytime you use this name for God in your prayer life, in your time with him, because we're looking this year at how can we better identify who God is in the time that we need or in the time that we're worshiping. And so to have though that one word to mean so many different things, I think is powerful. Um, because you know that God is all of these things and he's so much more, but in this particular name, he can be forever, he can be eternal, he can be everlasting, he could be perpetual, and he could be ancient. And so I encourage you, me, um, to use this to know that he is always God. And he is a covenant keeping God. He is a promise keeping God. He is a providing God. And he will always be that, regardless of what our situations in our life look like. So that's what I have. I'm going to open it up for anyone who has any other notes. And like I said, I know that there was a few more scriptures that were mentioned in the book, but I did not have time to study those. And so I don't know if anyone else did or has anything else to share.
I read them. Don't say I went like looking for all the other things about them, but I did read all of the scriptures and they honestly did resonate the same. It's just a reminder again how forever, how beginning and end that He is, how everlasting He is. And in this studying just the name and going through it, I was like, what are my thoughts? And my thoughts kept coming back to like nothing expires when it comes to Him. It just doesn't. And I
Hmm.
can get with that, I was like, because we always think something has a time limit, and it was something in there. It was saying about how the time is like it's like time and space. None of that
Hmm.
matters. It says it speaks. I said it speaks to the fullness of experience of time and space. And when you think about time and space, that doesn't expire. It's like what is that? Infinite. And that's so is what
Yeah.
he is. And I really did that's what I just kept hearing. Just Amber, remember nothing expires. You think there's a time limit on X, Y, and Z. You think he's not gonna do X, Y, and Z. It just doesn't expire. So that was
Right. Thank you. And yeah, that's what I think it said that, he is to it says the God of whom one day is like 1,000 years and 1,000 years is like one day. And so we put time limits on for Abraham. It's been 70 years since God gave me this promise and he hasn't done it. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday and they were saying, I'm just so frustrated because I feel like I'm studying and I'm reading and I'm doing all the things and God is not talking to him and I'm looking for him to give me direction and he's not saying anything. He's not saying anything. And I said, well, he's not obligated to say anything. I said he went 40 years without talking to Moses. When Moses ran away after killing the Egyptian, he was gone for 40 years. And after that 40 years, God said, okay, now it's time for you to go back to Egypt and to free my people. Um, and I'm pretty sure Moses had a relationship with God in that interim of the time. I'm pretty sure that he was talking to him and asking him and seeking him and wondering what was happening. But it was when God made the decision to say something 40 years later that he did. And so I'm like, if God is not talking to you today, he's not obligated to. But I said, we have to trust that I said sometimes that can be a privilege that he knows that he can trust you because you've been doing the work. I said, so now it's time for you to make the decision. Because he's not telling you what to do doesn't mean you do nothing. It means that you still move forward, but you move forward in the wisdom that he's already instilled to you. You move forward in what his word is telling you and teaching you now. So you may not audibly hear him. You may not hear him in a song. He may not come to you and give you something in a dream, but his word is going to always remain the same. So you can always pick up your Bible and find his word, and that may be him speaking to you in that time is is through what his word has said, because that's everlasting. That is the God that we're talking about today. That's never going to change. And so I said, if you are not audibly hearing him the way that you're used to, it doesn't mean that he's not speaking. He may just not be speaking to you the way that you want him to and the way that you're accustomed to, but he's still going to have a word. And he may not speak in that way again for 40 years. So, that
Hi
was it.
guys.
Well,
I did not get to study as much as I could have either, but what kind of stood out to me is of course he is the beginning and the end. And a couple weeks back, I think week 2, we I study out of the NIV Women's Study Bible, and
mhm.
one of the scriptures on one of the pages, it was showing how old people were. So, Adam was there, Abraham was there. And so I was looking at the ages. I'm like, Adam lived to be a 930 years old. So the one thing that kind of I picked up on is like patience. You know what I'm saying? Because we will never see 930 years. You know what I'm saying? But not only did he live to see the promises that God promised him directly, but he got to see the promises of his descendants. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like one of those things, like you said, God's timing. It may not be like you said when we want it or when we expect it, but it's going to come true. And these people had to have the faith and the endurance to weather through all these years. Abraham was 175. I think he was like 90 something, I believe, when he had his child or something like that. But like just learning and seeing, being able to see those examples of the faith that they had and the patience they were almost forced to have to see these promises come through. It's like, if he could do it for them, he definitely gonna do it for me. You know what I mean? Like at least that's what I'm getting from it. And to know he's the beginning and the end. And you pointed out that it said 1,000 years is like a day, and a day is like 1,000 years. I couldn't imagine without like the technology that we have getting through a whole 100 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like we have to stop living in being entitled is what I
Mhm.
got out of it. And so it's just a reminder that patience is a virtue. That's what it says. And we have to know with all our heart and believe with all our heart, like what's for us is for us. And we're going to get the blessing if it's
Mhm.
ours. Don't try to go right when you're supposed to go straight. Don't make a U-turn. Don't do all the things that will hinder, block, or delay your blessing. So that's what I got out of it.
Amen. Lex?
That was good.
I got on here to check in, to get some feel good stuff, not to get this whooping. This is not what I signed up for tonight. This is not what I thought I was logging in for. But that everything that y'all are saying is good.
Well, when
And
you've
when
been gone for a long, when you've been
go
gone for a
ahead.
while, you got to come back to a spanking.
And when Sissy was talking, it's just like again another reminder of the man ain't got no limitations, okay? And we put so many limits on him, and even though we know he doesn't have any, but we still do it, and that's probably a subconscious thing. But baby, the man is again everlasting. There is no limitations on something that's everlasting, and that
Mm-hmm.
is by far the most amazing thing anything can be, and that's why he is who he is.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think it reminds me of this whole house situation. Y'all know I was supposed to be out of my house for 6 months. I've been out for 20 months. And through this process, I've had to continue to be like, I'm still grateful. I'm still grateful. I'm still blessed. I'm still grateful. I'm still blessed. I'm still grateful. I'm still blessed. All the things. Like every time I want to complain, every time I want to you know, scream, kick, all of the things, I still have to remind myself, like, I am still blessed. This is not the situation and or circumstance that I thought I would be in. This is not the situation or circumstances like, but I'm still blessed. I still have a roof over my head. My kids are still safe. We still have lights. We still have running water. We still have the comfort and security of being here. We still are like all of those things. We still have food in our refrigerator. We still have heat. We still have all the comforts. It's not the comforts that I was expecting or wanting or needing in this space that I thought, but it's what God, it's not, no, I'm not gonna say it's not what I wanted, but it's everything that I need. All of my needs are provided for. And so still operate in a spirit of gratitude because it didn't happen when it was supposed to happen, but it's gonna happen. And so every day I've had to consistently remind myself that over the last 20 months. So thank you.
And
E-
I just want to quickly just say, I know we say it all the time. Many of us always thank you, Jaslyn, for having this space, but like things have been so aligned on all fronts. I popped in to Bible study, which I don't regularly attend at the church on Wednesday. I try to tune in on Facebook, but I actually was there, and Tim was speaking on Hagar literally the week after we spoke on Hagar. And so it was just aligned, and I took your phrase right over to them because they were having similar conversations, and I said we put human limitations on God sized blessings. Everybody kind of turned around and looked at me. I said that's a quote from Jasmine. I said, but they were like, oh yeah. So it was like it was awesome for me to be able to have the knowledge and the study from here and doing on my own to go into another setting and be able to give people's little nuggets. So I just, again, just appreciate it. And being, even if you don't have all the time in the world, because I don't know how you do anything at this point. Um, but just thank you so much, because it's really just expanding my knowledge and my faith. Like it's just so good. Like it's been good this whole time, but this book in particular is just really allowing me to know what I'm doing, like who I'm calling on and what I'm calling for. And like I said, I'm already teaching it to Mari when we have our prayers at night, our prayers before she goes into school. Is just teaching her things, and she's asking questions, and I'm going back and looking and doing all the things. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Nita, you had your hand raised on purpose, accident. Oh, okay. You was doing the ding, ding, ding. Okay, is there anything else? I didn't stop this.